I just woke up a few minutes ago, and the first thing that I did, like a complete moron, was look at Twitter, because the way that my morning process usually goes, my morning routine usually commences, is that I wake up, I take my dog outside, I check Twitter to try and find some interesting Hearthstone decks. And well, there weren't really a lot of people talking about a lot of interesting Hearthstone decks, so I decided to look at HSReplay to be inspired, for my stream, to try and figure out what exactly am I going to play today. And I've got a problem. I don't like any of the decks that are playable right now in Hearthstone. Even though we just had a balance patch to where, Shaman has been essentially deleted from the format because Swarm Shaman is now just bad. Rogues are now becoming less popular because Psycho Rogue got hit. Dungar Druid is not really that active on ladder right now, but I feel like it's just a matter of time before people start playing that deck again. And that's right, you guys. It is a rant video about the meta. Oh god, I really have a lot of takes in this series, but here's the thing. I've already given a lot of these takes before in a previous video of me also complaining about the meta, and the TLDR of that video is essentially, I love the design of these cards, I love the theme of these cards, I want to play the new cards, but the new cards are just weak. This might be one of the weakest expansions that we have seen in terms of meta relevance and overall power level, and it is completely due to the fact that old archetypes and old cards are completely overshadowing these new cards, because if you want my honest opinion, Blizzard is trying to set up the framework of this new rotation to be all about, minion-centric gameplay, and this expansion was the very first layer and the first, expansion they needed to put out, so that way they could start going down this direction once the rotation actually settles through. But I'm going to be talking about what's going on right now, because what's going on right now is that I really don't want to play the game until we get a mini set, because I just am so sick and tired of playing these archetypes for the two following reasons. Number one, I've already played a lot of these archetypes, and case in point, Nature Shaman is on here. I don't need to be playing any more Nature Shaman. I've already played the deck. The only thing that feels new about it is the fact that people are running Ethereal Oracle, and we will complain about Ethereal Oracle here in a second, but ultimately speaking, my problem with Ethereal Oracle is not the fact that this is a strong card. It's one of the only good cards from the new set, and it's not really incentivizing a lot of people to play other cards, because why play something else when Ethereal Oracle is the only card that matters? The issue is not that this card is powerful, the issue is that all of the other cards surrounding it from its same set are like completely trash level. So let's take a look at some of the HS Guru decks real quick, because it's not that I don't hate some of these archetypes, but I've already played the hell out of so many of these decks. I don't need to be playing more Rainbow DK. Zarimi Priest is interesting with a 15/15, which somehow doesn't make it into this version of the deck. Oh, here it is. It's in the ETC. Why the hell is this in the ETC? Oh my god, modern Hearthstone deck building really drives me crazy. But Nature Shaman, Cutlass Rogue, I will admit, is kind of interesting. But again, it's centered around Spectral Cutlass and not really around some of these new cards. The only new card that makes its way into this deck is the Ceaseless Expanse. This is going to be a common theme going up ahead in a lot of these decks. Again, Blood Control DK, Rainbow DK. People are playing Spell Damage Druid again, with almost zero new cards except for Ethereal Oracle. You scroll down even more. More Rainbow DK, more Rainbow DK. Finally, a Starship deck. But what is this? If you go and see who streamed it, it was me, and if you take a look at how many games I had with this deck, it was only one. I lost with it. I didn't play it again, and that's something that's kind of funny about a lot of these decks. Like, for example, Excavate Mage by Homie here. He went 3-3, completely dropped the archetype. This is not, a good deck, but it is something that a top streamer played, and sometimes Donkey will just show these specific individual decks that streamers had success with because they're at a high rank. Like, case in point, there's another deck down here pretty soon that you'll see. But there's Egg Hunter, there's Rainbow DK, Attack Demon Hunter. Oh my god, if I see another Attack Demon Hunter, I believe I'm going to lose my mind, because I just really hate everything this archetype stands for. But then you have even more Discover Hunters that are trying to capitalize on the deck that we saw at Worlds, and I'll go ahead and give you a spoiler alert. The deck is just not performing that well because people either A, don't know how to play. Okay, wow, the stats on this guy in particular are absolutely cracked, so I guess don't listen to me on this one. But most of the archetypes that I have seen with this particular deck, there we go. This is a lot more in line with what I've been seeing. Like, apparently it's good into Paladin. one win against a Demon Hunter, maybe somewhat lucky, but the rest of the matchups sometimes just feel really bad. And when I was playing the deck for the past couple of days, it just really didn't go that well. The deck is fun, but I'm just not winning with it. But that's not what I want to complain about. What I want to complain about is when you start getting into the interesting archetypes after scrolling HS Guru for a bit. It's like this is pretty much what your options are. You have Buttons, Frost DK, you have Armor Warlock, you have Infinite Discover Hunter, Spell Mage. I don't really know why it's on here, but I guess you could play it. I wouldn't really recommend it. There's this Demon Warlock, which I will admit is extremely fun, but it's a complete meme deck. There will be a deck guide showing this here in the future, but there's also kind of a spoiler ahead to future content. It's not that I don't want to make Hearthstone content. I don't know what to make. What, do I make my third, fourth video about Lanessa Paladin? Do I talk about Draenei Priest again? I've already made a ton of videos talking about Rainbow DK. What do you expect me to do in this circumstance? Talk about the deck that has like one slight change to the list? You might as well just go back into the previous videos and just see my deck rundown and my deck breakdown on those archetypes, because there's nothing really new, it feels like. Again, Control Warrior with Boom Boss. Odin doesn't actually make its way into this deck, but it's like just the typical Control Warrior is still going to be good. Handbuff Paladin is still seeing play. Control Priest, Psycho Rogue, Cutlass Rogue, like all these decks are just like, there's nothing new. And now you guys are probably going to be asking, well, Clark, what exactly do you want from the meta? What exactly are you looking for? I'll tell you what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something new and for something interesting that comes from the Great Dark Beyond, because I want to mess with these new cards and I want to do my job as a content creator to get people incentivized to try out these new cards, and from Blizzard's perspective to get people to buy these new cards. That's why a lot of streamers and a lot of content creators focus on the new sets primarily, because you are trying to push more people to buy the set. But how can I tell anyone to buy the set when all of the freaking decks right now are not really utilizing the new cards? Like, okay, Spellburst Rogue, don't know why this is happening, but it does use Shafar, so at least that has that going for it. But Handbuff Paladin, some of these stats might not be that updated, so let's go to last day. Okay, Pipsy Paladin, Asteroid Shaman, Draenei Priest, Pirate Shaman, Taurus Paladin, Highlander Priest. Oh my dear fucking god, please goddamn no, please do not let this deck be good again. But yeah, there's just so many archetypes that are just, they're old news. Like one of the only new archetypes that find its way into this list is Asteroid Shaman, unfortunately, as well as Grunter Hunter, which really isn't using new cards. It's just finally utilizing the warrior cards that it was given in Perils in Paradise. You scroll down even more. Elemental Mage, kind of a new deck, but we all know most people's opinions on this deck, because again, it's one of the only new archetypes that got to thrive, and it was completely shoved down our throats at the first week because this was one of the only good archetypes that was working. Pirate Demon Hunter, Discover Hunter, finally some new stuff that isn't that bad depending on how exactly you play the deck. Psycho Rogue, Libra Paladin, finally another new deck, but it's barely cracking the bottom of tier 2. Then you finally have these other archetypes where you start to see a little bit more of new archetypes like Pressure Rogue, like Space Rogue. I don't know if Control Priest is really that new, but it's still running cards like the Mystic Tosha, so there's still somewhat of a new lean on it. And then when you scroll all the way down the bottom, you have Big Shaman, you have Plague DK, you have Death Rattle Warlock, which is the Armor Warlock a lot of people are playing. And it's just like, this is pretty typical. Granted, there's not a lot of new archetypes at this level, but that's because these archetypes need to be played enough in order to be populated at this MMR, because you need to have a certain amount of people in order for these decks in order to show up on the website in general. So now that we talked about that, one other thing that I feel like is super important to look at are the new cards. What are all the new cards that see play? Because this is we're looking at the times played, and I have some very sad news. Look at this list and tell me how many new cards are on it right now, just on this list alone. This is like, I don't know, like 20, 30 cards or something like that. There's not a lot. It is Ethereal Oracle and Arcanite Defense Crystal as 2 of the 3 most commonly played cards. But then if you go all the way down here, you don't see it until finally Ceaseless Expanse is on the list. That is 3 cards out of this entire list of, I'm not gonna count because I'm too lazy, but that is 3. That is way too many, way too few. Like, what am I supposed to do? The new cards are not good. They're not seeing play. People are literally not playing the new cards, and that is a problem, dude. That is an absolute problem. And when you scroll down, the message just keeps getting further solidified because the only new cards that find its way on this list are past Ceaseless Expanse, are going to be Airlock Breach. Okay, that makes sense. It's a powerful card. Everyone knew this card was going to be good. Then it becomes Alien Encounters, and then it's Arcanite Revelation. They're like, I just scrolled down here. This is like what, like maybe like 40 to 60 cards or something like that, and barely five new cards from this new expansion make its way into the most played. By the way, I'm not even looking at I'm not even looking at how powerful these cards are. I'm literally just looking at how often these cards physically saw play, and it is ridiculous in my opinion that this set is just so underutilized. I mean, it's not even underutilized because there's not a lot of utilization for these kinds of decks. So what have I been doing? I've been doing variety content. Now, granted, I didn't start doing this because I didn't like the Hearthstone meta. I wanted to play Hearthstone as well as do some of my other favorite games during this month for Clarksmas. We're doing some special sub rewards over at twitch.tv /Clark HELLSCREAM if you don't want to join us. But it's just like, I'm actually super glad that I decided to do this because Hearthstone has been absolutely driving me crazy. There's just no other way to do it. Like, I want to be able to enjoy the set, but I am quite literally having more fun streaming other video games than I am playing Hearthstone right now because the meta is it's just not interesting. There's nothing fun that people are really experimenting with. And you want to know something else that I've been experimenting with? Is sponsors. I'll go ahead and say it, man. Like, I have been accepting more sponsors because I'm kind of worried about my income. This seems like a great way to be able to segue into the Holzkern's Christmas special, where if you order in the next day or two, if you order by the end of the 19th, at the end of a business day, you will get your delivery guaranteed from Holzkern. I've gotten 2 watches from them and a ring. Super great products. I actually enjoy watches now. It's kind of funny, but here's some of their supplies. Really high-end watches that are all about using natural materials and are FSC certified, so you are completely confident in knowing that your swazzy-looking watches are made with the earth in mind. You know, we gotta keep up with our earth, man. There's not a lot of people that are really caring about the environment nowadays. That's always a big seller for someone like me. And personally, I have gotten the green marbles, the green marble silver open horizon watch. I'm really bad at pronouncing these. I apologize. The loyal and maple marble. This is everything that I have gotten from Holzkern, and they give you special gifting boxes. And if you want to, like, you know, really give someone a present that they're going to remember and have it be presented in a wonderful fashion, I will definitely recommend Holzkern. Link down in the below. Ad out of the way. Now that we've talked about that, I want to talk about the biggest disappointment of the Great Dark Beyond, and that is the cards. That there's just so much flavor and so much passion, legitimate passion that was put into the set, but we're just not utilizing these cards because they're just not good. Case in point, Draenei. I think Draenei is legitimately the worst tribe by a large margin that we have ever seen in Hearthstone. Quillbores at least had some threatening cards within them that saw meta-relevant play in some specific archetypes. Now, granted, there were no, like, specific Quillbore decks, but the biggest issue that I'm trying to present here is that look at how many of these cards have actually seen play that are part of the new set. The Chillfallen Baron, we're going to have to get rid of that because there were some retroactive cards that were changed to Draenei. So now we're just looking at the Great Dark Beyond. This card doesn't see play. This is one of the only meta-relevant Draeneis that are out there right now, and it's just more gas for Rainbow DK, which you really know that we're in a dire circumstance if I'm complaining about how common Rainbow DK is. I like the deck. I just want to feel like there is something else I can play out there, but it looks like I'm just gonna have to do off-meta nonsense that's gonna make me lose my sanity, or I'm just gonna have to play Rainbow DK. Like, I'm really upset that, like, these are my options right now. I want to be able to explore more within the Great Dark Beyond, and all I'm doing is going back to planet Earth. Like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go to Earth. I want to check out the stars. I want to do something new, dude. And it's like Crewmate Demon Hunter, completely trash archetype in my opinion. Arcane Druid, I feel like has a chance of being good if they keep supporting this archetype, but I feel like it's just completely overshadowed by the current meta because if you play the board and it gets wiped, It's typical token druid stuff, so there's not really a lot to do there. Hunter has actually been killing it with these cards, so I have absolutely no notes from these. I don't mind Discover Hunter, but in my stream, a lot of people come to me and they're like, why does Hunter have a bunch of value cards? That's not part of its class identity. Well, I don't care about class identity if the cards are cool. There, I said it. Class identity is sometimes just a restriction, in my opinion. It's something that you should be, it's more of a guideline than it is like a hard restriction. That's like the example I like to use. But Hunter is playing some fun stuff. I like the idea of playing Hunter as long as it's not just all-in aggro playing the aggro Discover version. Not really a fan of that, but Infinite Fizzles definitely has my attention. And then you have, oh my god, these cards. I've been gaslit by these cards so many times, and I actually do have a game that will showcase the XR Hataru in action, but it's not in Mage. It was in a Priest deck that I had success with these cards, so Mage doesn't really feel like it got that much of an expansion, even though there is a list running around, but it's complete bait. It's such a bad deck. Like, Arcwing Pilot, it's an interesting card. I will give you that. It is a very interesting card, but if you're trying to win games, it is not a card that is going to work. Interesting archetype, it's really low in power level, so once you lose a couple of games with it, you're never going to have that high roll that you're dreaming of, so you just eventually give up on the deck. Libram Paladin is a little bit different. These cards are actually pretty decent because, the fact that they're Draenei has nothing to do with it. It has everything to do with the fact that they are Libram cards, so it's Libram Paladin, not Draenei Paladin, which kind of still fits into the narrative I'm talking about, where Draenei's aren't good by themselves, or they're not good as a tribe in Hearthstone, like a Murloc deck, for example. You have to use Draenei cards very sparingly. Priest cards, these cards don't see play. These cards kind of saw play in the beginning of the expansion, but once everyone figured out that Funnel Cake was nerfed, this deck just completely fell apart. Rogue, a little bit different. Doesn't really have Draenei cards, has Starship cards, so he doesn't really have that much to talk about in that aspect. Wow, I really didn't know what to say there. Jesus Christ, just gonna keep that in there so you guys understand how difficult content creation is. Lamau. But Planetary Navigator, Nabundu, Cosmonaut, Bundy kind of sees play, but these other two cards are just Nebula Shaman, Copium cards, and then we have the entirety of Warrior, where this entire archetype is just a joke. This is probably the least effective deck that I have seen in quite some time, where I would literally compare Draenei Warrior to Whizbang. Whizbang had like a 27% win rate. Draenei Warrior probably has a 26% win rate, because there's probably only 26 people that have ever played this in the entire world, and unfortunately, I am one of them, and oh my dear god, this archetype feels insulting to play. It just does, because it's just so weak and it doesn't do anything, and I have so many cards that sit in my hand that need to be used in a very specific way, and then I can't utilize them because I'm dead by turn 6. It's just like, these cards, what were they made for? They were made for a different meta. They're not made for the meta that we're in right now, dude. And then I don't even want to talk about the neutrals. Velen. What is this card for? Trigger the battle cries and death rattles of all of the Draeneis that I played? What, so I'm gonna give my Draeneis in hand +1/+1? I legitimately can't think of another death rattle outside of the one that draws a card. So it's like, what is this card trying to do? There's also the Draenei card that gives you temporary, Draeneis in your hand. Like, what is this trying to do? Velen is like the most, we just threw him out there legendary, hoping the players would figure it out, but there's almost no dimension to this card outside of maybe doing something in Priest. I really feel like Priest is one of the only classes that can utilize something like Velen for the following reason. The next Draenei you play summons a copy of itself. That's one of the only ways that you can maybe make Velen work well, and it's just like, I really wish I had more positive things to say about the expansion, because I want to play these cards. I want to play the space set, dude. And kind of going on in this exact in the same vein, it's just like the legendaries are so underwhelming. 8 Hands from Beyond should be a decent card, but it's actually unplayable because you almost never make it to turn 8. And by the time that you make it to turn 8, if you play this card, sometimes you're helping your opponent. Sometimes the Asteroid Shaman is going to have less cards in their deck now, so they have more ways of being able to OTK you. Now, granted, you could use this card and try to time it, right when your opponent does a bunch of Asteroid plays, and you can maybe delete them. But by the time that you're doing that, you're probably either dead on the board or you're already dead because your opponent has drawn through all of their good stuff. So again, it's just very frustrating to see some of these legendaries that are really cool just be completely thrown to the wayside. These two cards, they're not really the coolest in my opinion, but Zorthoth, however you pronounce this, Really fun card. I mean, the idea of being able to deal 5 damage from your hand, like I thought this would be a pretty decent control card, or maybe like a decent aggro tool even, and it just doesn't see play in either or because it's just a bad card in the archetype that is Demon Hunter. The Druid cards, do I even need to talk about Ulu? Do I even need to talk about how laughably unplayable this card is? This card is actually unplayable by 2014 Hearthstone standards. Just let that sink in. This card is so bad that you have to draw it, then it starts getting its effects. That is literally some 2014 power levels of Hearthstone stuff. And I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to slow down the game. I like this attempt that they're doing, but what I really don't like is this really long, awkward middle period where it's like, hey guys, we're working on it. It's coming soon. You just have to keep waiting. It feels like I'm always waiting for the next balance patch. It feels like I'm always waiting for the next update. It feels like I'm always waiting for that from that video from a content creator or someone to do something interesting with the game so that way I can finally start having fun with it, because the decks that I have built and the decks that I really wanted to have fun with are just not good, and I've tried them so many times I feel like I'm beating my head against a brick wall. And Ulu is just, how do you use this card? You don't use this card. It sits in your collection and it does nothing until they actually meaningfully support this card. So it's just really annoying. Then you also have another circumstance here. Well, yes, finally we have a good legendary, but what about Gwyrm? I have to say this. Blizzard, why are you so obsessed with dormant cards? Why are we so obsessed with dormant cards? Like this looks great. This is something that's like, it would be a YouTube clickbait thumbnail where it's like, ooh, it's a 3-mana 12/12, and it's dormant. And just like that, I'm walking out of the room, and I'm never looking at this card again, because dormant cards aren't good. They keep trying to do it, but it keeps failing. Like, how many good dormant cards have we seen? There's like maybe one, and it was Mag, and Mag did something while he was dormant. It's like, that's the issue. I'm sorry, dormant cards kind of drive me crazy. I just don't understand the idea behind the design philosophy behind them. And then you have Sarun. Okay, this card saw play. What else has seen play? Because I mean, I really don't have a note on this card. Like, yeah, I'm not a fan of the. Okay, this background thing is really annoying me. By the way, Blizzard, please fix your website. But like, this kind of card is fine. Like, it's annoying to go up against it, but the real reason why this card was annoying is because this was one of the only new archetypes people were playing, so it's just like Elemental Mage, Elemental Mage, Elemental Mage. There was no other new mage deck that people were playing, which again solidifies my biggest problem, is that there's only really one kind of new deck people can really utilize from this new expansion. Then you have Urel and Lumia, which are pretty decent cards as well. Lumia, I feel like, should be better, but this meta is just way too aggressive and way too quick, which is really ironic because it's a 6-mana 9/9 with lifesteal. The priest cards, yeah, they're priest cards. What else can I say? They're supposed to be unplayable. Tallgath has been buffed twice and is still unplayable by most of those standards. Gravitational Displacer, really fun card, but again, starships aren't really the greatest. I really can't make this point with Rogue in particular. Rogue was kind of eating not too long ago with the starship deck, and it's still a pretty decent deck, but it's just like, this is really the only new archetype that I've been able to explore and really have fun with, and I'm just sad that I have so much fun with this deck in particular, but all the other archetypes I'm just not even remotely interested in, dude. And this has nothing to do with the fact that I saw Rogue first and I had all these archetypes. I like starships. I want to see starships played, and one of the only ways to really play starships recently has been in Rogue, which is why I love the archetype, because it's what I enjoy at a pretty decent level in terms of the meta. Then you have the Shaman cards. Murmur, I feel like it's really close to being good. People are like gonna crack this card, especially when rotation happens. But another issue with this card in particular, armor decks completely counter it. So there's that going for it. So it's kind of got, I mean, if this card was good, I feel like a lot of people would hate it, but it's just kind of sad in my opinion that Murmur doesn't really see a lot of play outside of some really meme decks. We saw a lot of meme decks yesterday with Murmur. Bundy, pretty good card, really nothing to say about him in all honesty. And then you have these cards. I will admit, if you caught me yesterday before I started experimenting with this card, I would have told you that this card was just flat out unplayable, but it's a meme card. It's not supposed to be that interesting. This kind of card is allowed to be bad. But the biggest issue that I have is that demons are usually just really bad in Hearthstone, no matter how you do it. Tribe cards are just weak in Hearthstone. What can I say? If you put a bunch of demons together, they're probably not going to accomplish anything that good unless you do a bunch of mana cheating with it, which I guess is kind of possible with this kind of card, but regardless, it's just not exactly what I'm looking for. Kara, I'm really not sure how to utilize this card. I feel like we just need more shadow cards for this to be good. But then again, it's an interesting card. I really don't have any opinion on this. The warrior cards, need I say anything else? Need I say anything else? This shuffles a Sporn tier deck that costs 5 mana. You have to play it. So that way you could summon a 5-drop, and that way your future replicating Sporelings will summon a copy of it as well. How in God's green earth am I supposed to use this card in Warrior? The way that I think that they're trying to play this card and they're trying to support this is that you're playing like a control warrior that doesn't care about delaying the game. So that way when you do draw these spores, you have minions that are threatening the board, right? But here's the issue with this card. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work, man. This idea is so weak where it's like you kind of understand what they're trying to push with a card like this. But the other issue that you have to keep in mind is that you're shuffling 7 cards into your deck that do nothing to keep your opponent from killing you. What is this card trying to support? Because outside of that example that I gave you with like Control Warrior that can like bide its time, this definitely is not going in a tempo deck. It's just like, what is this card? What is this card? It is so bad and just so laughably unplayable in my opinion that like I understand that the idea behind it, but then when you think about it for more than 2 seconds, it's like, why would I play this when I have Boom Boss? And there you have it. The whole reason why this expansion sucks is not that these ideas are necessarily that bad, but in context of what we've been seeing, these cards are laughably unplayable because they don't do something immediate. Now, granted, I said this at the beginning of the video, they are trying to shift Hearthstone with this expansion, and then when the rotation happens, it's going to be a completely new feeling game, but I just really need to say, man, that I am really struggling to log into the game right now because I'm just not enjoying what is currently on my plate right now. I am not a big fan of veggies, and man, Hearthstone just giving me broccoli after broccoli after broccoli after update. And then we didn't even get to the rest of these cards, but Ceaseless Expanse sees play, Exodar sees play. I was having fun with Kill Jaden. Shafar, very niche, but does see play, and then Velen, completely unplayable. It's just like, these cards are so interesting. And that's the sad thing, is that I want to utilize these cards, but I just simply can't. And the last thing that I want to talk about, Starships. I've already complained a lot about Starships, but at least with this particular section, I can say that these cards are very fun. DK did see play for a little bit. Starship Demon Hunter, not really that good, but does see very fringe play with people that are trying to play aggressive versions of the deck, as well as Arana Demon Hunter. Starship Druid has been probably the weakest outside of Druid because aggro doesn't really work with the Starship mechanic. You just go infinite with Kill Jaden and with armor. Kind of like what we were saying earlier, if you're playing Starship decks, you're just playing for armor decks. Then you have the Hunter deck, which is finally starting to get some love. Hunter might be getting better after this update. I'll have to do some digging to finally see how good this archetype is. But if you want my general opinion, this deck is too fair, as in it doesn't cheat a lot of mana, so it's not really doing a whole lot of impressive things really early on. Pretty typical of Hunter, but Starship Hunter is at least fun in that aspect. Starship Rogue is still playable, but people are going to have to figure out the new list now that Sonya has been touched up, because Sonya with Starship schematic no longer works. And then the Warlock cards are they're just laughably unplayable. Like, Starship Warlock is just Armor Warlock, and it's literally called Armor Warlock. And every single time I play the deck, I end up seeing someone being like, well, it's not really a Starship deck. And then I play Reverb on my opponent's Gravitational Displacer or on their Biopod, and then I win the game with Starships. So it's like, Starships have ways of being good, but it's just they're way too specific, where it's like you need to build a deck and like you don't even care about these cards because they're not actually helping with your game plan whatsoever. These cards are also bad. They're never seeing play in any Starship deck. This card is never going to be used as a tech card against Starship pieces because most of the time, if you destroy the ship, you're killing yourself in the process. So this guy is just, you know, essentially suicide bomber. And then you have Exodar, which is a pretty decent card and fun. Really makes the Starship archetype feel good, but it really says a lot that they thought it would be good at 8, and they had to bring it down to 7, and even at 7, it still doesn't see that much play. So what was the point of this rant? Why did I spend 30 minutes recording this video complaining about Hearthstone cards? Well, number one, it's my job, and I feel like if the expansion is bad, I can't do my job, and if I can't do my job, I can't earn income. That's the real reason why I'm upset. I have been making videos recently. There's nothing new to cover outside of talking about something that is vaguely related to Hearthstone that happened on Twitter or happened somewhere else. In terms of the actual gameplay and wanting to log into the game, I've never seen the hype be as low as it is now, because 2024 was supposed to be the year of hyping up Hearthstone, and it's just been disappointing update after disappointing update after disappointing announcement, where, oh god, it doesn't really feel like this is a 10-year anniversary. It feels like a funeral in some aspects, because we've gone out to space and we've completely left our home behind. So it's just like, I really don't know what to suggest to improve the state of the meta outside of it. Just, we need a rotation. We need a rotation. We need a mini set that's actually going to solidify these decks, because that might be what's happening here. The next mini set is going to be one of the biggest updates in terms of cards added from a mini set. It's gonna be the largest mini set that we've ever seen, and it really should hopefully bolster some of these archetypes, because this is what I think is going on right now. What I think is happening at the moment is that we have not even half of the good cards that are from this new set. All the good cards are in the mini set, and once that comes out, it's going to push Hearthstone to a ridiculous level in terms of like the Great Dark Beyond finally being good. Granted, this is a conspiracy theory. This is all speculation. I have no data or any leaks or anything to show you that confirm these suspicions, but it's just one of these things to where this set was so weak. Not because I think that these cards are weak, but because all of the good cards are going to be in the mini set, because they really want this mini set to hit, right? It's the StarCraft and Hearthstone crossover. They want a lot of hype for this, and if this mini set does not launch this expansion, then I really don't know what would outside of a rotation. And if a rotation needs to save an entire expansion of cards, it really shows how bad Hearthstone has been this past year, because it has been so cutthroat. You have to play one archetype in order to survive. If you play a lot of meme decks, it's not even the fact that the meme decks aren't good. It's the fact that the meme decks used to feel like a 40% win rate. Meme decks are now 30, 20% win rate, even 10% win rate in some circumstances. Some of these decks are just so bad when you compare them to old archetypes. And that is pretty much going to do it for this rant, because again, guys, I want to make Hearthstone content. I want to make videos. But as of right now, there's not really much that I can explore. And I'm saying this after a balance patch where I really don't feel like the meta is going to be shaking up all too much. So I'm going to be enjoying my Christmas by playing some other games. If you're seeing this video as I'm playing it, we're going to be playing some Fall Guys on stream. I'll be taking people from chat. We'll be meeting up in our Discord. And yeah, we'll have some fun today with things that aren't Hearthstone when Hearthstone starts to eventually make me upset. Inevitably make me upset. I don't want to feel this way anymore. I don't want to be this armchair, game designer critic that's like, hey, this is how the game should be. I just want to make videos about new cards and new decks to where when I post them, people aren't just going to immediately go, this deck is unplayable. Why would you post this deck? This deck's not fun because I can't win with it, because all the decks that we are winning with came out last year. So that's my rant. Hopefully you guys find something of some sort of nugget of information that really solidifies why you feel like this expansion isn't hitting it for you, because the simple reason for me is that I'm not enjoying it because no new archetypes are thriving. It's all old archetypes with maybe one new card in it, and I'm sick of it. So thank you so much for making it to the end of this deck breakdown. If there's any Hearthstone game designers that are watching this, I love the theme of this expansion, but you got to admit the power level of this expansion simply did not hit.